Welcome back to another episode of Pop Culture Therapy. I'm Advent Nebula.
And I am Cruellica Kain.
And it's been a while, obviously, on our last episode, tackling Star Wars fandom and how a lot of you guys were right. But now we're doing what we promised, and we're going to start going into our best and worst of tokusatsu from the last decade.
So you're going to have two separate podcasts because since we're not entirely sure how long we're going to rant on our worst, we figure we'll separate them out so you can digest first this podcast on our best. And then you can enjoy the following podcast on what we think is our worst, and probably have to listen to us rant because I know one of the series that we'll most likely be talking about together may have some feelings.
Yeah.
So I'll just kind of keep it generalized like that so you can kind of get eager for when we get to that. Because I know everyone loves to hear about the worst more so than the
especially
best.
you guys on Twitter. And we're going to be seeing that because some of these series I've seen defended to the ends of the earth, despite how much I hate them.
Yeah, I will say jokingly, some of my best and some of my worst may be one of those like come at me bro moments of why, especially one of my best of the last decade. We should preface that. This is of the last decade. This is not including any older series, because if we went to our favorites of the entirety of the franchise of tokusatsu,
a lot of mine would be in the mid-90s and early 2000s.
Yes, and that's the challenge, is we have to really be cognizant of that. And for anyone who doesn't know what tokusatsu is, quick crash course, it started in about 1965 or
it was
6.
It was when Ultra Q premiered, which was considered the very first
Tokusatsu
64 series. But Tokusatsu has its origin with the original Godzilla movie.
Correct, yes. So basically it's special effects. And so the biggest for the series really started with the Ultra Q series, then following with Ultraman, then went to Kamen Rider, Super Sentai,
Metal Heroes, and then Garo is our most recent big franchise that's happened.
Exactly. So we have a lot of diversity when it comes to it. So I will say that for my top 5, it was a little hard because if you do include all of those different franchises together, you're going to have so much diversity.
And unlike me, you have actually watched through all of the Ultraman series that have come out that Kaiju's had you watch with him, where I have only seen bits and pieces of them, so I really am not going to be speaking on any of the Ultraman series where you actually can.
Yes, so I will be able to speak at least on a little bit of it. Some of them I've watched willingly, some of them I've watched unwillingly, because when you live with a man who loves everything tokusatsu, you learn very early on in the relationship, you either love tokusatsu as well, or you deal with it. And
some of it's been dealing with it, some of it's she's enjoyed it just for the eye candy.
Absolutely. I had to take what I can get, and now I love it as much as many others, so I kind of find myself one of the few female champions of tokusatsu, because there's not a lot of girl power that comes out of having fans of tokusatsu.
I think the stereotypes kind of
Absolutely. Which I will reference when we get to our worst, because there was a comment made about one of our newest series that we'll talk about then.
Yeah.
Because apparently my inner feminist has really come out recently.
Yeah, that comment had you on those series actually raging.
Yes. So, next thing I will preference, at least for myself, these are not in numerical order of my absolute favorite or my absolute worst. It's almost like all of my favorites. I don't know about yourself.
Mine are, for the most part, in the actual order of enjoyment from 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay. I would say mine are probably fairly close, but I make no promises because I love them all equally. So let's start with you.
And I'm starting with a series you and Kaiju still have yet to watch.
Oh, I think I know which one you're talking about.
And because I love video games, I was like, you know what? I'm going to hunker down. I ended up marathoning the first 18 episodes of the series just because everybody online kept saying, if you're a video game fan, you're just going to absorb yourself into the series. And X-Aid is probably one of the best Kamen Riders, I think, of all of them that I've seen. So I haven't seen a lot of the Showa era, but of the Heisei era, it's definitely in my top 5 overall as well. I enjoy the characters. The theme of doctors and the video games at first is kind of an off-put, and the first 3 episodes are a little rough. But the writer that was the lead writer on the show got his flow going pretty quickly about episode 5, and it just plot twists, and it was kind of nice to have a medical drama incorporated with a superhero show.
I can appreciate that. When I first started watching it with Kaiju, I think we were just turned off by the, like, boxy-ish of the
Which it does throw people off, and the explanation for it, not the greatest, I will give it that. But execution on the storyline worked really well, and some of the later writers in the series end up just being some of the better developed writers in Kamen Rider for one that has a large, diverse cast.
I can appreciate that, and I do endeavor to want to watch it, because that is a hard thing for me. I hate leaving things kind of unfinished, but it just, timing of everything just didn't work out in my favor. My top, I guess one of my top 5s that I really enjoy is, I am going to butcher how it's pronounced because I'm terrible with it. It's Zendain Sentai Kyoruger.
Which is actually my next one, so I'll let you go more into detail on this while we talk.
So I have to admit, first and foremost, I was one of those kids always growing up that loved dinosaurs. So anytime I was able to find something about dinosaurs, I always ate it up. And the other thing I love about this particular series, which is one of the things that Kaiju hates about this series, and let me preface this again. Kaiju might not hate this series as much as he does, like, Go Onger and things like that, but he hates this series.
The Red Ranger for him is on par with Bond, which is one of his least favorite, if not his least favorite Red Ranger.
It is. He always complains whenever you have a current Daigo Ranger, or the character's name is Daigo, usually does not turn out well.
Yeah, so Daigo and Bond probably are his 2 least favorite Red Rangers.
Yes. So I love this for many things. I love the characters. I actually enjoy Daigo.
And for a series with 10 Rangers, they're all fleshed out, even the minor ones.
Well, and you also finally have, and I know it's not that big of a deal for most people, but I thought it was like super important and super cool, is you had a non-Japanese person actually play a ranger.
Yeah, a Canadian actor that's a pretty popular comedian in Japan came in and played the Cyan Ranger in this series.
Yes, which I absolutely loved, except he looked not as heavy set in his suit that he did in real life.
Yeah.
But still, it was kind of the same thing they do with the Yellow Ranger from an old school.
Jetman.
Not Jetman. Oh yeah, Jetman and another one. But I love this because the gimmick was so much fun at the same time. Yeah. I really enjoyed the gimmick. I enjoyed
Samba
the character.
dancing, the transform, it was a fun ride of a show.
It was. And it was one of those few series I think even Silver Quill wanted to learn how to do the dance.
Yeah, it was. And this was probably the one Sentai where everybody else enjoyed it except for one person. And it was just because he couldn't stand the lead 2 Rangers.
Well, he couldn't stand a few things. So I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. I understood where he was coming from.
Yeah, some of the main villain wasn't that well developed, but the side villains, especially Caldea, she was probably my favorite villain.
Well, that's what I was going to say. For the villains, I actually enjoyed them.
And they became good at the end. Spoilers, but it's kind of important to bring up that 2 of your major villains become on the side of the good guys by the end of the show.
Well, and the other thing I really enjoyed about it was the voice acting. All the voice acting for all of the monsters, all of the villains were very well done. very thought out, and you actually legitimately thought they put a lot of tender, loving care into it.
And you had two Violet Rangers, the grandfather and his granddaughter, which was interesting to see a passing of the torch in a series like that.
It was. That I liked. And he also is the voice of every of the batteries, of the devices, which I have tons of them. Because I even have Carnival. Because, it was
one of the
required.
best little toy gimmicks they've had for a superpower up in a long time in the Sentai series.
It was. And another one of my series will specifically talk about gimmicks as well and how much I love them once again. But I really like this series. Will I say it's the best tokusatsu series or Sentai series in existence? No.
But for me, it's the only Sentai series I actually have in my top 5 bests of the previous decade.
It is. It's actually, and I was going back and forth with this and Gokaiger. Admittedly, Gokaiger was fantastic as well, because you had Marvelous, you had Doc, you had all of these great characters in that show as well. I had to go with Kyoruger because of the fact that I really like the characters. I also love the Blue Ranger.
Yeah, you have
Blue.
33 years old when he was doing this, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
So you had a Ranger and a character in his early 30s, which was something you don't normally see in a Sentai
In a
series.
modern Sentai.
Yeah.
In the older Sentais, there were chances. Obviously, we didn't know their ages as well as we do for, like, the modern Sentais. But there were some in the older Sentais that you could very well expect to be much, much older than the general core of between 16 to 25.
Yeah.
The other thing I liked about it, which I know, once again, not to bring up Silverquill, he loved about it, is because the Blue Ranger, Kyoru Blue, he always had a pun. And he always had to make a joke of everything. But he was also a family man at the same time, because his sister, she lost her husband, so they were all living together in a very tight-knit family, and even though he was an uncle, he was still almost that father figure for his niece.
Yeah, and it was... You don't see... This is probably of the series that came after it. They're outside of Zyuohger, character development for side characters, not that high.
Well, exactly. So I take so much with this series because, as we'll be talking about in our worst, there's a lot of series that fell flat, that tried to do either large, diverse characters or tried to do something different with a similar theme.
Or they play too much on their gimmick.
They did, which, yes, we will go there. But that is my number 4 pick.
That was my number 4. That was your number 5, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, that was my number 5.
So you're going on your number 4, because that was my number 4.
Okay, so my number 4, once again, these are in no particular order. This is the first of 2 Kamen Rider series on my list. And this is Kamen Rider 01, which I imagine is already on your list, so I won't go into...
I've actually excluded 01 from this, even though it started, because we haven't gotten to the end yet.
I know. The reason I've included it, because outside of the other one on this list, it is... And I was going to include Build because of the fact that this particular series hasn't completed. However, I kind of figured Build would probably be on your list. And if it's
actually didn't.
Oh, well, that's actually... And it's not a bad thing, because Build has a lot of its flaws, and that's the reason why I took it off my list. It's not my worst, but it fell flat very quickly, while this one is still continuing to stay strong. I understand it's kind of unfair to put it on the list when it's out there, but it's actually for 2 reasons right now. One, we're already nearly halfway through the series.
And it hasn't let up on its storytelling.
It hasn't let up on its storytelling. Yes, I've heard complaints about the most recent episodes kind of being a little bit formulaic. But with the way this story is going, it feels like there's a method to this madness, and there's going to be a payoff.
Yeah.
Even if it's not a payoff everyone in the world's going to like, I feel like it's going to be a payoff I'm going to buy into.
I could actually tell where this one actually, storytelling preferences was building up. You have one set of villains that have been taken down. You have the current villain with Thouser, him being set up until his fall down, and then we're going to get the reveal of what's actually going on.
And that's why I put it onto mine. Because with Build, when we got that big bad villain, it fell flat almost immediately.
It was too early.
It was too early. It was not thought out. And with Thouser, the benefit is you knew from very early on he was the villain. You got that very quickly. Even if you're not like, oh yeah, he's going to be the main villain, you knew he was going to take on that role. And it escalated very quickly where he became a perfect villain.
But you can already see in the background, even though we haven't watched the 3 most recent episodes, you can tell in the background there's somebody else pulling these strings.
And that's the reason why it is on my list. Because there's so much potential out there. That I have so much faith, so much thought, so much love for this particular show. The gimmick is very well done. The gimmick is very well used. And I appreciate it because where it can become like over compensated, like with Drive. I love the gimmick for Drive, so don't get me wrong. But the gimmick for Drive felt like it got old super quick. Where here, along with another of the series I'm going to talk about later, this gimmick has stayed strong and stayed consistent all the way along.
Which tells you it's going to stay consistent.
Exactly. So that's why I broke my rule and put this on the list for that particular reason. Because honestly, the other series I was going to put on my list until Kaiju reminded me of when it came out, because it is one of my favorite Kamen Riders, Kamen Rider Double. Wrong decade. It's like, damn it. So that's not that's why you're getting it, but that's one of the reasons.
So now I'm going into Adult Toku with Garo, second season.
Which is on my list, so I'll let you talk about it.
So Kaiju introduced me to Garo, kept telling me I needed to watch this. I hunkered down and watched the first season pretty quickly, and then the second season came out not too long after we started hanging out as a group together and started watching it through, and kind of just being able to pick the pieces together of what was going on was really amazing. Plus Zero, being one of my favorite all-time tokusatsu characters, had a bunch of side stories that were probably the strongest side stories away from the main plot. Because I don't want to spoil the main plot on this one, because the main plot takes up a good chunk of this one, as opposed to the first Garo series. But he had standalone episodes. There's an episode with a family that's feeding people to a tree, and then you have another standalone episode, which, by God, it's amazing, where a samurai comes through time and it ends up being a duel of clash of ideas of what a modern swordsman to an ancient swordsman, the ideals of what makes a warrior put together. And the fight choreography in this series is probably hands down the best I've probably seen all decade, even with the modern shows that have come about, because some of the later Garos relied too much on CGI, or they just didn't have the budget to do it look like at times with some of the later series, which I'll get into on one of that is on the worst later on. But character development wise, love the series a lot. And then it does have a sequel movie, which unfortunately we are not likely to see now unless somebody else here in the US picks up the license, because Kraken let their license expire, which I'm a little frustrated on, because we only had one more piece to go to finish up the whole arc of the first 2 seasons with the Cry of the Blue Dragon movie.
Absolutely. At least just the first 2 seasons.
Yeah.
There's so much more to it, but of the first 2 seasons, actually one of my favorite episodes is the episode where Kaoru is exploring with Leo.
That is a fun episode.
And she gets to see more magic in action because she's following the magic road. I know there's a very specific verbiage for it, but essentially the magic road along with Leo, getting to see magic in action more so than what she's seen with Koga. And she gets to actually revitalize her paintbrush with some of the magic powers. Kind of like one of the Makai priests.
Yep.
And I loved that episode just because it was so whimsical, so out of the ordinary for the series, along with out of the ordinary for her relationship with Koga.
But it was an episode that was really important for her relationship development with Koga.
Exactly, because I think she felt like she could connect with him more because she saw something that she didn't get to see in the first season. Because the first season took place in about 2006, and while this one was still very horror-driven, so demonic, this one didn't go lighthearted, but it took you onto a different side of the world of the Makai Knights and the Makai
And
priests.
this one was really more about the priests than it was the knights.
It was.
Also, what helped is you even had some media come out in between with some original movies and OVAs that came out between, so you got the feel of the progression of time felt very natural between the first season coming out in the mid-2000s, which now it's going to be 15 years since the first series launched with the 15th anniversary series this year.
Yes, and it's going to be pretty impressive to see kind of where they go with it.
Because it's going to be pretty much a reboot from what I've reading about the new one.
Yeah, I'm not too excited, but as I do with everything Garo, I'm going to give it a chance because I've done it zillions of times with everything else in Tokusatsu.
Yeah.
Why not
and
this?
the anime series, two are great, one's terrible.
Exactly, but you gotta give them all the benefit of the doubt. So my next Tokusatsu series is going into the world of Ultraman. I'm going to be talking about Ultraman Orb that came out in 2017. Or not Ultraman Orb, I'm sorry, Ultraman Jeed. Orb was the predecessor to Jeed. Ultraman Jeed is kind of in the same universe as Orb. Ultraman is kind of weird that way.
There's like 4 different canons of Ultraman, and they all can merge.
They all kind of merge in their own ways, especially if you watch the movies, because that's where they usually get together. But Ultraman Jeed is, I think the reason why I like this is because when I talk about whimsy, this has that little bit more of a whimsy because within the world of Ultraman, if you don't know anything about the series, unlike Tokusatsu or Sentai, you usually end up having a lone warrior or possibly one more hero alongside them, and maybe like real world people having to deal with the situations as well. I know a lot of the older Kamen Riders were very similar to that spectrum, but more current Kamen Riders, especially when you get into the Heisei,
and really get into the more Neo Heisei.
And the Neo Heisei is when you get into, there's usually like 4 to 5, if not more, riders. So within Jeed, you have the main character, Jeed, who is something different for the Ultraman universe. You've had some of the heroes be like the child of Ultraman, the child of Ultra 7. Now you actually have the main character is the child of Belial, which is almost like the Lucifer of the Ultraman universe. And within Jeed, Riku, who is the name of the character, he is kind of having to take on this role of being a hero, but not having to share it with everyone. There's one person who knows. There's 2 people technically who know. But the one person, she is like a samurai trying to get revenge for her fallen family. Then you have Ultraman X, who is the son of Ultra 7, who comes down to Earth and revives a human being, very similar to what you've seen in a lot of other Ultraman series.
And very reminiscent of his father.
Yes, and he takes over for this salaryman, who is a complete dork. I love this series because you get to see different types of Ultraman monsters from long past, kind of like Kamen Rider where you have those core type of animal types. You actually have the core type of monster types. And they do so much of how does a teenager who loves to play video games live on his own with an alien as his moderator. How does he handle being half human, half alien, and not just half alien? His father has attempted and nearly destroyed the world 10 years prior to the start of the series.
His father destroyed the Ultraman planet.
Yes, his father is literally the Lucifer of the Ultraman world. And I love the transformation because it's a circular device. And it's kind of like O's in a way where you have that circular device and it changes colors. Because it's like, you go, I go, here we go. And then he transforms, bonding together, kind of like how he is as a person, two different Ultramen. He has always his father as one of them, because he's half of his father, and then half of another Ultraman. The other thing I love about the Ultraman series is similar to Garo, but not like any other series. You can only be in this form for 90 seconds. So you can be a giant Ultraman for 90 seconds, and if you go past the 90 seconds, you can die.
Yep. And it's always, in any Ultraman series, the 90 seconds or 3 minutes, depending on which time of canon it is however the plot requires.
Well, yes. Garo does the exact same thing. The plot devices can have a 90-second spree take 20 minutes, it feels like. But I really do like this series because Jeed, similar to his predecessor, Orb, is just so wonderfully done. And unlike Tokusatsu, it's only 20 episodes max. So the budget for a 50-episode Tokusatsu series is put into 20 episodes.
24 episodes.
At most. CGI is great. Quality is great. Storytelling is great. Monsters designs are great. You cannot... you could complain, but you should not have a reason to complain about anything Ultraman related because it's such a short spurt of a series. It gets the story done that sometimes I think Sentai needs to learn a lesson.
Yeah. So going on to my number 2, who likes the Sengoku period? Who likes fruit? Who likes the two combined together in the modern day?
Oh my god, this is on my list now.
Kamen Rider Gaim.
Oh god.
Which I think I ended up enjoying the side characters in this series more than the actual 3 main riders.
You mean Bitchy?
I'm thinking about his brother and our main rider as well.
Okay, we should start at least to reference that
Mitchie has a nickname that we called Bitchy because he did nothing but whine the entire second half of the series.
Which I will give credit to our friend Ryan, because he's the one who actually came up with the nickname. And I was like, you know what? This works too perfect.
But Koda was, as much as I liked him as the lead character, because he was silly and rambunctious at times, the latter half, his story arc when he actually became Oba Nobunaga and had all his max forms and everything, he kind of took a step back to the rest of the cast because he just became basically a god.
See, for me, for Gaim, one, I love every single gimmick. My actual favorite gimmick of the show is the DJ gun, which is
one of my favorite weapons I've ever seen in the Kamen Rider series.
Which I have to admit, when I got as a present, I was beyond excited because whenever I need to smile on my face, that's the one weapon from Kamen Rider or anything Tokusatsu I have to immediately turn on, because just the way it goes with the record scratch, I'm like, yes, I love it. What made me truly, truly love this series, while the storytelling was great because everyone did such a great job, is when one particular character came on.
Durian?
Yes, when you had Bravo, or I think he goes by Mr...
He goes by Oriane Pierre Etoff Bravo.
Yes. And I think he goes by Mr. Fabulous.
Yep. And his actual name he goes by in Japan because he's an actual heavy metal artist.
A ninja man.
Yep. is Metal Yoshida is actually what he now goes by officially in Japan.
Yes, and if you like metal music, I would definitely recommend listening to Ninja Man. I have all of their albums because immediately after finding out that this most awesome, flamboyant Kamen Rider character in existence was on the series, I had to find out what he did previously, and finding out he's this like...
He's a big metal star.
He's like 6'1". He's huge, especially for Japan.
Yeah, and he's a very, very popular metal artist in Japan.
Absolutely. He definitely helped make this series what it is. I will say Takatora, Mitsuane, Ryoma, all these characters were fantastic in the show.
You actually had a believable romance between two of the villains, between Yoko and Kaito. Mm-hmm. Baron and Peach, respectively.
Yes. And it was, I guess I should preface this. While there was a female rider in Ryuki, it was only movie.
Yeah, where she's technically the first female rider to be featured through the majority of a series.
Exactly, because she didn't gain the rider ability until closer to the second half of the series.
It was episode 20, I think, when she first transformed.
But she was the first true female rider to appear in a series. And that was, I would say, probably one of the best things about Kamen Rider Gaim is that you finally had a character who did something completely out of the ordinary.
But it made sense at the same time when you came from a plot perspective, because she's the real life Sengoku period warrior she's based off of was one of the few female warriors that was involved in the Warring States period.
Well, and the character herself, I believe her name was Yoko.
Yep, Yoko.
Yoko, what really helped for her is how she played the character. She played her a combination of being very powerful, but also being very feminine at the same time, because...
But also she didn't take crap from any of the men that she was taking orders from.
She didn't. She was a loyal subordinate to what she believed in, but it was what she believed in along with what they believed at the same time. If she really bought into what her leaders were saying, she would do it. She was strong as hell, because I think she beat the crap out of Kaito at least 20 times in the series.
And then the secondary villain, Ryoma, who was the mad scientist of the series, had probably the best going out battles I had seen in a Kamen Rider series. From Baron, who you thought was going to be a hero, turned into a villain, and then his character arc comes back to being the hero of Earth, which is one of the best I've seen for the storyline of a secondary Kamen Rider in a series.
Yes, and I'm trying to remember the name of the main villain from the second half, because she was fantabulous, and I actually loved, it's going to take me a while. It's been a while since I've watched the show.
It's been a while since it too, and I'm even trying to look up what her name was, because she was a goddess, basically.
She was a goddess, and she was voiced by, which I thought was perfect for how it was done, she was voiced by Seto Kaiba's Japanese VA from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. So she had a very strong male voice, which was supposed to take on this dynamic of showing the dichotomy of the gods within the Gaim universe. That they were almost like androgynous in a way, rather than just being strictly male versus female.
And then you had the other god that took the form of one of the characters that you don't expect at the very beginning of the show, and you don't get to reveal till episode 46, in the DJ that has been the one overseeing the dance parties that the main three riders incorporated with.
Yes. And I will say that was one of the problems with the series initially, is the fact that it had this dance party motif that when you watch the first few episodes, you're like, not really understanding why everybody has to be part of this dance troupe.
But then I looked a little into it, and they basically was Sengoku battles, but done with dance parties.
Exactly. So it made sense when you went along, but that was a hard thing initially. Just like every other series of Kamen Rider, they have like one coffee shop they always went to, and it always had these crazy ass designs.
And it wasn't just a coffee shop, it was also a parfait shop, which you're looking at some of those ice creams like, I want that.
Oh, well, yeah. The Japanese and their love of food. I really do need to think about making that a podcast for the future for us. Nevertheless, Gaim, I don't want to spoil it at the same time, is an incredible series. Came out in about 2000. It ran from 2013 to 2014, and when you think of its successors, is the best word of putting it, very few until we got to build. Well, I understand X-Aid was good as well.
X-Aid is really good, but it wasn't at the level that Gaim had.
No, it wasn't until we got to build where we got that feeling again of we're capturing what Gen Orobuchi did, but we're trying our own spin. While it failed, I kind of feel like 01 is trying the same thing over again.
01, and it helps they got a writer again that can write a series in that vein of dark, but at the same time awesome.
Yes, that's exactly how I would look at it too, is they really cared about what they did. And apparently Kaiji Okami is here, because anytime we're talking about a thing that he loves the most, he has to literally walk in. So yes, my love.
Nothing, my ears were just burning.
Oh, because we were talking, well, they should have been burning from the beginning, because I was talking how much you hated one of the series.
Shoduger?
Yes. Which is on his list too, so ha! People like it.
Some people just like subpar crap.
Okay. Before we get into why Kaiji Okami can speak on his, what is your top, since you took my top?
So, my top, you're not going to be surprised because of my love of space, Forze.
I am not surprised.
Yeah, you're not surprised at all on this one.
Forze, okay. Let me just say this before he gets into it. I'm going to cut you off like Kanye West did. When myself and Kaiji Okami, since he's now in the room, watched Forze's first episode, we're like, wait, this is High School Musical with Tokusatsu.
No, Glee.
Glee with Tokusatsu, and we went click and turned it off for 2 years?
No. Because we started watching Double and O's when Forze was nearing its end.
Oh, okay, yes.
Because when we fully caught up on Forze, there was only one episode left to air.
Oh, yes, okay. But that is all I wanted to say, is we did not have any hope for it in existing. But please.
Yeah. And I watched the series, the first episode is still probably one of the weakest openings of any of the Kamen Riders from the Neo Heisei era, for sure. But Gentaro, you just can't help but enjoy his ridiculousness of his character, especially when his transformation is Space Yatta.
I know.
No, I like that he has the PlayStation buttons on his suit.
Yes. Yeah, if you actually look very closely at the arms, that's basically the PlayStation buttons on his gloves.
To be fair, what helped me love Forze, not just Gentaro, who kind of now reminds me of Jotaro, because apparently now everything is JoJo's
but
reference.
Gentaro is basically Josuke and behind those Unbreakable.
No, but Meteor.
Yes.
Meteor was the best part of that show, and Sagittarian, but...
Sagittarius?
Well, I thought his name was Sagittarian. The monster form.
Yeah, that is the monster form's name.
I don't...
Yeah, but all the Zodiarts, because all the main play villains are based on the constellations of the Zodiac. You had some very, very good ones, the roles there, and I don't want to spoil Vertigo, because Vertigo goes along and voiced very feminine, but there's a plot twist in the late 30s on who Vertigo really is that just blew me away when I first watched the series.
I will agree. I love Forze. The reason it wasn't on my list is because I love Ultraman now, so it's hard to fit everything in.
And they kind of messed up the Zodiarts.
Oh, you complain about everything.
Well, no, it was like they were doing all this pacing with those Zodiarts, and then suddenly like, hey, we only have 10 episodes to go, remember? And we have like how many Zodiarts still to introduce? Oh crap, we need to start doing one Zodiart an episode.
That was the only problem I had with the series, but overall, the main cast is what sold it for me.
Oh, yeah, the goth psycho chick, she was my favorite.
Tachibana from Blade being the principal.
Yeah, and the principal turned out to be Libra.
I just figured out the best thing we need to do in this. This is my wish for this year. We need to have Silverquill watch Forze, and every time the principal appears, we need to say Tachibana.
Tachibana! Tachibana!
That's what we're going to do.
Yes.
That's our goal.
Tachibana-kun!
Because I will watch this series, because if we watch it again as a group together, it'd be my 4th time watching the series.
Oh, yeah.
Be your 4th time for Forze?
Yes.
Oh, wow, children. Okay.
Yeah!
So
Let me just put on these sunglasses even though no one can see it.
So before we go into a special
You have your
selection,
number. You have your number 2 though to mention as well.
Well, actually, you stole it. So
Yeah.
We had so many on this list together.
So what do you need to do? What's your number 2 and number 1?
Well, I already, since he had similar to mine, do you really want to know? You could just listen to the podcast.
I want to know, because I'm not going to listen to the podcast.
I love you. Your support is great, because now nobody else is going to listen to the podcast.
Hey, they're going to listen because I'm on here.
Kyorager 01.
Kyorager was number 1?
No, 5.
Number 5 for both.
And then Garo, Makai Senki, and then Jeed.
Oh, you did go with Jeed.
I went with Jeed.
You told me Orb yesterday.
I know, and then Gaim. So that's the reason I'm done.
So Gaim is number
1.
1.
And
Gaim or Jeed is number 2.
2. Well, it's no particular order.
Makai Senkai is number 3.
Yes.
Number 4 was
01.
But it hasn't finished yet.
That's
Can you
why
really
I
count it?
I'm counting it.
She's counting it. I'm not. I'm counting it in
and
this
then
decade.
Kyoruger.
Well, 01 is technically this decade still.
Yeah.
So, nevertheless, before we go into a special series that we both wanted to share as one of our ultimate favorite tokusatsu-esque series, what would be your favorite tokusatsu series of the decade? Since you're here, Kaiju.
Alright. Number 5. Kamen Rider Gaim.
Wow, 5, you're lame. Okay.
Number 4. Ultraman Orb.
Not surprised.
Number 3. Go Kaiger! Number 2. Tokusatsu Ga Ga Ga.
Okay, and?
Number 1. Garo Makai Senki.
So, actually, this is a great lead-in.
Yep.
The reason why neither of us included Tokusatsu Ga 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 is because, in our opinions, it's not technically a special effects show because it's technically considered...
Josh Wan overrides it all.
It's considered a J-drama.
Yeah,
I don't care. It's still a Tokusatsu series.
Yeah, it is a J drama, and it's still manga's still running for it. I don't know how the sales are for it, but unfortunately, because some of the scanlation sites have been taken down, I can no longer read it.
And because I don't know why they're not making a second season of it, because Damien was my favorite character in the world, even though his name was not actually Damien. I don't think we ever found out what his name was.
We did. I just don't remember what it was.
But he was so adorable, and when the main character, she sees him for the first time, and she thinks of him as the little boy from the Omen series.
Or the guy that runs the shop that she likes to frequent that looks like he's from the Yakuza turns out to be just this J-pop magical girl-loving guy.
Well, I think the reason why I love this series is, yes, Jeswan is a tokusatsu series I really do want to see made in real life because it's fantastic. It also says, it doesn't matter how old you are, people. Enjoy what you enjoy. Love what you love. 2 of the main characters, well, in the second half of the series, love boy band to the 20th degree. Then you have a woman who's closer to about 40. Shut up. Loves tokusatsu.
Who's the main character?
No, her
the
friend.
Okay, I was going to say, because she's not 40.
Yeah, her friend.
She's 25. And her mom...
Oh, fuck.
Oh, I love... Yeah, you said that for like a week after we watched the episode. Her mom throws away her Jeshuan toys, and she has like this literal like come to Jesus panic attack, and I'm like, I've been there.
No, she broke the toy.
Oh,
She
yeah,
broke the toy in front of her.
But you love Tokusatsu Gaga as well.
I did, and I was reading the manga, and I was kind of surprised to find out about the series until Marcus told me about it. They follow a similar path, but for me, the character I can actually relate to the most is the guy that looks like a Yakuza, but turns out to just run a toy store and loves some of the most girlish anime possible out there.
As you could probably see from pictures or videos of Advent Nebula, he looks like hipster incarnate, and he really isn't. He just looks like one.
I don't know. That is up for debate if he isn't or not.
But at the end of it all, Tokusatsu, no matter which form you love, starting from Ultraman all the way to most current with Tokusatsu Gaga, it's great. It's a lot of fun. It's very well developed, and it actually disappoints me that more anime fans aren't willing to give it a chance just because they see Power Rangers.
Or because they see live action.
Yeah,
Yes.
some will not give it a chance because it's live action, which I think if they did, they'd be able to relate to the series very well. And there was a Densho Toku that came out in the early 2000s that was the same way about an anime fan on the internet forum.
Oh, the train man?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love Densho
Yeah.
Toku.
Which
I
was
actually
the-
have that series.
Which is in the same vein of this one. It's like, if anime fans would give it a chance, they'd relate very well.
Here's the series that anime fans can watch if they really want to give chance to Tokusatsu before they actually watch it. Samurai Flamenco.
Yeah, that's one I would agree with.
Well, and then there was another show earlier a few years ago called Blue Blazes.
Oh,
which
yes.
was on the manga author, and they had the this Ultraman scene in a bathtub where the guy's like, "Tell me what episode of Ultraman am I?"
Which I want to sit down and watch that series.
I actually do too. But enough of our diatribe. We're actually going to kidnap Kaiji Okami for our next podcast, so you'll see it next. Our worst Tokusatsu
Wait, you
of
didn't
the
do that one
decade.
yet?
Nope.
So, see you later. Bye!